Então, muito boa tarde, e em português ficamos por aqui e passamos então a inglês, ok? So, welcome to this session. I'm going to present you the participants. We have Rui Falkvinge, founder of Pirate Party and civil liberties fighter. Rui Seabra, an IT professional and president for ANSOL, which is the Free Software Association. Luís de Sousa, chairman of Assoft. Nuno Cardoso, coordinator of Portuguese Pirate Party and member of the board of the Pirate Party International. Miguel Caetano. He is a researcher in communication sciences and new media. And myself, I'm a journalist, and I deal with these issues of science and technology for a couple of years, 16, 17 years, but I've always been interested in these issues. And so it's a pleasure to be here to talk about piracy, about freedom, and these issues that you all are as well interested in. I believe that most of you are engineers or want to be engineers, and so this is something that deals with intensely with your ideas, and you every day you deal with this. I'm going to ask the members of this panel to introduce themselves. It's better than if I am here talking as we have them here. Perhaps it's better if they present themselves. So, Rick, will you start, please?
Okay, so, hi, I'm Rick. I'm a politician. In general, I travel and speak about the ideas of civil liberties and put the copyright monopoly in a historical context to understand kind of where we are in this conflict today, and also perhaps understand a way out of the conflict. I founded the first pirate party in Sweden in 2006. It's now spread to 63 countries. I also enjoy whiskey and going very fast on motorcycles.
Rui Seabra, por favor.
Hello, I'm Rui Seabra. I'm the president of ANSOL, which is Associação Nacional para o Software Livre, and we are a free software promotion association that was founded under the principles of the Free Software Foundation, which basically started in the early 80s to invert copyright over its head with the notion of copyleft. And in Portugal, we have had a lot of activity around the copyright laws that have been happening in recent years and that are currently going on.
Luís.
It's me.
Oh, okay.
So, hello, I'm Luís. I'm not a politician. So I studied here in the IST. As soon as I put my hands on a computer, I just became in love of it, and so all my career has been in the IT industry, mainly in software, to be very, or more honest with you. I'm the president of a Portuguese association for software, so we believe that everyone that creates things should have, so an author should have the right to decide what should be doing with it. If he wants to keep it private only for him or for his family, he should be entitled to decide that. If he or she wants to try to sell it and try to be in the market, it should also be allowed to do that. And in the end, it is our choice as consumers, every one of us, to decide if that person will have or not success. And finally, if that person wants to give it away for free, so be it. So it's also a right that she or he has to do it. And I'm fighting piracy at the core, so apologies for that.
Okay. Thank you, Luís. Miguel, tell us about you, please.
My name is Miguel Caetano. I'm a PhD student in communication sciences at ISCTE, and I'm also I'm also a research assistant in a project that is studying the relationship between peer-to-peer and European cinema. How can peer-to-peer be detrimental or beneficial to European cinema, and what types of impacts and effects can it have on its diffusion and distribution?
Thank you. Thank you. Let's go back to politicians. Nuno, you are a politician as well.
Well, I'm a politician, as we are all politicians, because we all influence policy with our votes. And for that matter, I chose the best political party there is to do that, which is the Pirate Party. I've been a member since 2009. I've been its international coordinator since 2010, and I'm a member of the board of the Pirate Parties International since last year. I'm also a software developer and researcher. I've been so for 17 years now, developing commercial software and such, but I believe that our civil liberties should never be trumped by copyright law and monopolies, and so I joined this party not only because of that, but because on the other matters it is completely open and allows for the people to give their opinion and not to pass a blank check for 4 years to some other person to decide by us. Because we don't do that with anyone else. We don't do that with our doctors. We don't do that with our lawyers. We can choose anyone who pays service to us, but our politicians get elected and they can do whatever they want for 4 years, and I don't believe in that. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. This session will work like this. I have some questions for us to discuss. This is not a sequence of questions, of course. We must have a talk, and I'm counting on you as well, because I believe you have many questions for our guests. So feel free to make me a sign, and I will give you the word. I don't know if there is a microphone for you, but perhaps there is. Anyway, so the first question is. Why is this a political issue? Why is this to be dealt by politicians as well, and not only a technological issue? I think this is. We have here many engineers, and so I think it's good for us for you to explain why this is also a political issue. Who will start? Will you start?
Okay, from our point of view in the Free Software Association, in ANSOL and other entities like that, is that sharing is a very important human behavior. We need sharing and we need copying, because that is how we develop ourselves for millennia, since day zero to our time of death. Everything we do is based on previous knowledge that we have shared and copied with others and from others. So basically, it is never a technological issue, because our lives are not technology. We use technology, but it's a matter of our lives and how we evolve. And because of that, this is an important matter that affects us in every possible way.
Okay, Rick, is this the reason for you to create a party? Is it a party like any other party, your party? Do you run for elections as well? And so on?
Right. I would say that this is one important aspect of it, but the reason we politicized goes a bit beyond that. Normally, you would not politicize sharing of information, just like you wouldn't politicize freedom of speech. The founding fathers of the United States had this insight that you don't put freedom of speech to a vote, because you'll have a majority limiting freedom of speech for a minority. There's always one minority in society that is considered so vulgar, so detestable, so horrible that they shouldn't have any rights whatsoever. That has been true in every society at every point in time. The founding fathers of the United States circumvented this problem by not putting freedom of speech to a vote. They put it in a Bill of Rights and saying this is outside the scope of Congress. The reason we had to politicize was that freedom of speech has been politicized by the copyright monopoly and by similar business privileges that are now threatening these civil liberties. We need to counter them. We need to counter them on the technical field, as in developing tools to circumvent these privileges and limits to civil liberties. We need to circumvent them on the market field, creating better services that make the monopolies irrelevant and obsolete. And we need to counter them on the political field, where they have reigned supreme, to create a multi-pronged approach to safeguard civil liberties for the next generation. That's why politics is one part of it, but it's not enough.
And what is your target? Is it politicians or citizens?
Global world domination. The target of us would be to make politicians take these issues seriously. Don't be a follow the experts sheep, but rather just listen to why there are people protesting in 200 European cities. You haven't seen this before, so learn from it.
Okay, people who fight for freedom, sharing, and so on, is not against copyright, I believe. So you are for freedom, of course.
Of course, so I was not saying anything because I agree with Rick.
Yes.
So at my core, I believe that freedom, and if you look at the cyberspace, what happened in the last years, you saw people sharing and promoting a lot of the what I would call inclusion on the world. So in English sometimes it's difficult to. So it's the cyberspace has promoted heavily worldwide social and political inclusion, and that is good. I'm not against sharing per se. What I'm saying is that if for some reason you are sharing something that is not authorized, and again, please note that we can do things protected by law on my private sense. So I'm not breaking the law, just copying something to hear or to give my son to hear. I'm not breaking the law. When I'm breaking the law is when I'm putting that in Pirate Bay, whatever it is, where 1 million, 2,000 million, whatever is the population of the world, can go there for free and just copy it. So to shorten up, yes, I agree with you in the sense that we should have the same rights as our grandfathers. I think it was what you said, and I think we should. But that doesn't give me the right to break the law, and that's what we are defending. And yes, we should define. So I agree with also with the notion that we should discuss things, because things should evolve. You know, we are living in a new paradigm, and in that new paradigm, we need to adapt ourselves. But
okay, the question is who makes the law and what law are we talking about? But we'll go through that further, okay? Miguel, you are a researcher, so perhaps I can ask you, is this a cultural issue? People is changing how they deal with these issues?
Well, I think that it's more than it's a social phenomenon. It's more than it's not restricted to culture. But I think that people are starting nowadays. They just don't care. In the survey that I did, I found out that the respondents didn't care much about or didn't know how to distinguish non-authorized copyrighted material from authorized copyrighted material that they found out or that they downloaded on the internet, because there's a distinction that you know, there are very wholesome. There are many types of content that are distributed online, authorized by the authors themselves. Creative Commons licensed musics and music songs and movies, etc. But people just don't care, and I think that the social norms are getting far and farther away from the wall that is enshrined in the codes, in the code. So there's a big bridge between what is written in the wall and what people think, or not just what people think, what people do online, because they don't think about if they are what they are watching or watching is copyrighted or not copyrighted, if they are authorized to access or not. Sometimes they even think that if it's streaming, if it's music streaming or video streaming, is automatically legal, and it's not always it's not always like that.
Okay, Nuno, do you think also that everybody knows when they are doing piracy what they are doing? Is people aware of that?
Well, I think people are not even supposed to know that. I'll give you an example. Let's imagine that you're driving your car and you're tuning on the radio. And yeah, you're liking the song, but do you really know if it's a pirate radio or not? There's no way to know. There was a lot of pirate radios in the 80s and 90s, I guess, and people weren't liable to know. They wouldn't get arrested to listen to the radio that was playing on their car or at home. It was the job of the authorities to check who was uploading the music to the radio waves. The downloading of that music was always legal, and it still is. Illegal downloading does not exist. It's the biggest lie ever. And it's a lie that keeps being told by the copyright industry. You don't get to sue the people that are downloading because it is not their job to know if what they're downloading is legal or not. It is up to the one who's uploading to do that. And the authorities should go after those people and not those that are downloading. Here in Portugal, I think that the Department of Investigation and Public Prosecution, I don't know how to say this in English, but UDIAP, even made a recent observation concerning the case against the 1,000 IP addresses that the video club industry took to complain about. And they said that downloading and sharing was in a sense legal because it was a private copy, and they even went further than what I was expecting. They said that even when the download was finished, keeping the file on the peer-to-peer network was also not illegal. That was a surprise to me, but okay, if they say so, I believe them, and it's refreshing to see them just saying that. So it is. As a final touch, it is not about the problem of is what I'm doing illegal? Am I downloading this illegally? Because that's not even an issue. And as I said before, it is the problem of the authorities to go and see the upload or the one distributing it.
You talked about legal and illegal. That leads us to the lawmakers, because it's illegal if it's against the law. Do lawmakers know that? Are they aware of that?
Well, as Rick beautifully said it, the lawmakers are just following the tech experts and the lobby groups. And apparently all are not in accordance because those that made the law made it a little vague here in Portugal, and some of the interpreters of the law, meaning the ones that are prosecuting cases that are brought up using that law, understood the law in a sense that I was speaking about, that it is not illegal to download because there is no illegal downloads, only illegal uploads maybe. It depends, the authorities have to check those, or the content holders have to check those, and not the people who are downloading.
So if you download a music and by any chance someone takes you to court, you are not afraid of that? Because the judge, is he aware? Well, he will decide.
Well, there wasn't yet here in Portugal a judge making law on that. But so it is an interpretation of every judge, and it depends on the personal feelings of the judge. And then there's appeals, and we all know how justice goes here in Portugal. But consider this. If you were listening to that radio on your car, and you had a tape recorder on the car or at home, and you taped the song, what you were doing was recording something that was being streamed. Actually, you were downloading the music onto your hard drive or tape at the time. Nobody ever got arrested for that. You got arrested if you took those tapes and sold it on the market, because that would be counterfeiting and whatnot. But today, the problem is that it is way too easy to do that, what we always did in the past in several ways. And the content industry is very afraid of that. And that is the main problem, and that is why there is so much persecution of people. And the cases when there is a single person picked out of the many are the cases that eventually go to court, because it's easier to prosecute one person instead of 1,000 or 2,000, of course. But the purpose is not to punish that person in particular; it's to make all the other 999 afraid of being the next person.
Right.
Am I afraid of it? No, I'm not afraid of it, because I don't even download. I just listen to streams and whatnot, and legal streams, of course. And because there is too much music to listen. If I was to download all the music that I like, I would never listen to it. And I would never listen to it from my hard drive or whatnot, because I just listen to the online radios of today. And that suffices for me.
The question is the business model that prevailed for several years for musicians, for instance, for creators, was selling their musics. And so, how will they survive? Who wants to take this point? Okay.
Discussing a bit how artists can make a living in a new world, or in a world where the copyright monopoly is being questioned, is threefold. First of all, we do observe that artists are making a living. They are making more money than before file sharing, and we do have statistics on that, which are the statistics that the ones most heard in the debate, the middlemen, do not want you to see. You can observe that the average income for musicians have gone up 114% as a direct consequence of file sharing. That's obviously very good for artists, but it's horrible for the middlemen who used to take 93% of the cut. So how will artists make a living? And my response is an excellent one, thanks to file sharing. It's not really, it is not a problem for the artists, it's a problem for the middlemen. So there is this conflict between freedom of speech and the copyright monopoly that these middlemen tend to lift up, as in, we're not trying to prevent freedom of speech, we want everybody to be in control of their own work so they can sell it, so they can make a living. But the conflict there is that if you sing some song to your friend on the phone, you're using the same kind of communications channel as if you were communicating the entire work in a digital format. Any digital communications channel can also be used to send works that are protected by copyright today. And the only way to tell which is which, the only way to sort legal speech from illegal speech is to look at all of it. You can't sort it without looking at it, which is why there's an inherent conflict in these old business models. So I much prefer going to a new model.
And in this new model, we see many creators quitting the traditional market, right? Is there where they are making money, quitting the traditional market?
You can observe that 1 out of 200 signed musicians only ever got a cent in royalties. And out of those who would call themselves musicians, only 1% were ever signed. So you can easily observe that an independent artistry can suddenly make money, which it couldn't before. They were dependent on the gatekeepers, and that is eroding. I think that is fabulous for artist business, for artistry, and for culture.
And perhaps much more people is listening to music and so on. Do you find in your research that the use of content, music and movies and so on is increasing?
Yes, but what I find interesting is that the internet, and with file sharing and the internet, consumers are starting to move beyond that the passive position, or users are starting to move beyond that passive position as consumers, and they are starting also to be active, not just as producers, but they also can contribute to the creative process by remixing and by remixing the works, by making translations, by making subtitles, and lots of contributions that can help the works of the artists to get a bigger audience or a bigger public. And what's interesting to me is all this debate about copyright wars, about how copyright is killing musicians' way of living. Is that a recent survey made to 5,000 music professionals in the United States found that only 6% of the musicians, only 6% of the profits of the revenues of the musicians come from sound recordings, and that only 11% of the musicians' income comes from copyright, and the rest comes from lots of sources of revenues, like concerts, live shows, like sponsorships, like licensing music to TV ads or to films. There's a whole series of source of revenues that are available to musicians that keep getting ignored by the copyright industries when their message is, especially with the message that is distributed by the mainstream media, because you rarely give you rarely found news articles in the press highlighting how live shows are getting, the revenues coming from live shows are getting higher and higher and higher, and all the sponsorship deals are getting more money from the to the pockets of the musicians and artists.
Yes, previously musicians, they launched, they publish music or an album, and then they want to sell that album, and perhaps they make a tour or a tournée to promote the CD or so. And now it's the opposite. Where they get money from is from the tournees, from the tours they do, right? And now software. We are talking about content, but software is also in this bag. I mean,
Well, software is protected by the same kind of laws. So
but it's not the same thing.
No, it isn't, because I believe the first main difference is we don't have middlemen in the software industry. So we produce software, we sell software, and if we have to litigate about our IPR, we go for it ourselves. So in that sense, it's different. And music and somewhere books and so on, because of the nature of it, yes, they depend on the middleman, as Rick put it. Well, I don't think they are bad for itself. I think the market will decide in the future what will happen. And yes, the new kinds of so the internet as it is today is facilitating that I can go and publish in YouTube a video of myself singing, or put a book that I wrote also available somewhere in the net. If people like it, they start to use it and to share it, and that's okay. So in the sense that I put it there to be promoted in that way. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, there are new ways of doing things, and musicians, authors, they will go as they fit, it's the best for them. If the best for them is to move outside of the normal circuit to promote their own music by themselves, so be it. And I think what we should be aware is, this is a question of the market. It's the supply and demand forces that are dictating things. Now the supply is losing some strength. It's a technological revolution, yes it is. But on the other side, I think it's good to see musicians and so on getting more strength. I would, as a final remark, because I think we are looking at file sharing and whatever it is that we are sharing, and piracy, is that in Portugal, the majority of the audience is too young to know that. But I was 14 years old when the revolution appeared in 1974 on the 25th of April, and I learned one thing that is today at my core. My freedom should end where your freedom or the other people's freedom starts. Which means that if I don't, so it brought in the first place. I'm an author. I don't want to be copied. I should be able to do it. If the market wants to buy it, will do it. If the market don't want to do it, that I will not be successful. But in the end, I think we should let the market decide, and the market are ourselves. And again, regulation should be enough. So we should be careful about it, but it probably needs to be there. But in the end, I would say people should be allowed to, if I want to write a book, I should be able to do it. If I want to sell it, I should be able to sell it. And I don't think that anyone has the right to steal it from me and to use it in the other way. So.
And the business models are also changing, because a few years ago, 10 or 20 years ago, if I write a book, I sell it for 30 euros or
something around
100 euros or so. And now I can sell the book for 5 cents, for instance. Only I sell much more copies. And are the authors aware of this? And are they willing to enter this new model? What do you think? The question is for all of you, if you want to. Okay.
Before that, I will just delve into the two previous subjects very quickly.
Of course.
For the first one, how can musicians survive? Well, as Rick told in the previous talk. Well, how do they survive now? Because 2 years ago in the Portuguese conference called Cultura Pirata, so pirate culture, we learned from some musicians that were present that the Portuguese recording labels have boxes and boxes of CDs from aspiring musicians. They could be the next Beatles, the next Blur, the next Mariah Carey, hope not. But it means that they would be popular, and suddenly they are not even listened to because they don't simply have time to listen to all the CDs that are promoted to them. And that effect on most of the aspiring musicians is devastating. They don't say anything. Maybe I sucked. And then suddenly, maybe instead of being a very good musician and very popular, he might be working at McDonald's. And delving for the next point, in fact, the software market proves that you can cut the middleman. So even if most of the non-free part of the world tries to basically just say that we can work without middleman, we just sell it ourselves. Well, in the free part of the world, where we respect your rights and do not tell you what you can or cannot do. We basically tell you, please share, please work, please do whatever you want, and please study and modify and join us, please. Basically, what we are doing is we show that we are good programmers, and then we can get a good job, or if we have business sense as well, we can do our own company or partner with someone who has a good business sense. And in either of the spectrums of software freedom, basically we are proving that we don't need a middleman. So please, musicians, don't give a crap about labels, just publish it. And preferably under a Creative Commons license that is nice, because some of them are not nice.
Okay.
So,
just a small comment. I agree with you to some extent. Unfortunately, we need a middleman. We call in the software industry, the commercial side of it, distributor. But why are we using it? Because it brings value to our chain. So my point is, yes, we can cut the middleman if it makes sense to cut the middleman. In the case of software, let's be honest, the big companies, they need to use a smaller one to distribute their products because it's what makes sense for the market. So yes, we can cut the middleman, but so theoretically, sometimes it makes no sense. So sorry.
So I find myself agreeing with a lot of good points here. I just come to the exact opposite conclusion. Yes, I believe in the market. Yes, I absolutely believe that you have a set of rights that come to a dead stop where somebody else's rights start. That is why, for instance, I don't understand we are sitting here in a panel discussing whether the market needs a middleman. There's no point whatsoever in discussing whether that link has any value in the value chain, because if it doesn't, it is going to disappear under favorable circumstances, unless they have legislated their place in the value chain, which in case we have a serious market distortion, which I take it both of us dislike. There you go, we agree. So
I agree with everything you said.
So I agree that if you have a piece of property, say this almost empty bottle, you have the right to sell it. But once you've sold it, it is no longer your property. It is the property rights of somebody else. That means it is their right that you seek to limit when you try to prevent them from making a copy of it, reading from it aloud to their friends, and doing a number of other things that are specific to the copyright monopoly. So I do not agree with your conclusion that you should have the right to control what you create in perpetuity, or at least through the death plus another 70 years, because that limits the rights of somebody else. So again, I would love to see the market take care of this, but we have a legislated monopoly that is not some kind of natural right. It is a huge market distortion. I'd love to see the value chains sort themselves out in respect for people's rights.
Se houver questões, if you have any questions, you may me. Okay, I believe many of you, or some of you, will become software developers, or you are. Some of you are already software developers, and I know that some guys who I've been talking to tell me that nowadays when they create a new software, they use parts of other softwares already available. And so this is something like you told about music. You make remix of music and so on. Okay, so I have here. Is there a mic? Okay, okay. We may start over there.
Hello.
Please tell your name and.
Hello, I'm Duarte. I work here in Technico. I don't think that the middleman is the only problem to the copyright monopoly. There is no single pirate friend of mine that, given an idea in which he thinks that he'll make money from it, he doesn't want to, you know, patent it or copyright it. So maybe if, and I don't know how we could do that, if we could convince people that copyright as a whole does not work even for himself, which I'm not sure it does, only then the middleman will naturally disappear, because it's not on the interests of people. You know, we have the internet. If I'm a musician, I could be a very great musician and start posting my music on YouTube, something like that. So the middleman just simply disappears. This already happened with software producers, of game producers. I don't know the name of the game. I'm sorry, but I know that they went for a project planning thing on the web, in which you state your what you want to do and people fund it if they're interested, and they asked for $4 million because it was a really hardcore game producer, and they got $8 million. So yes, these things do happen. The middleman is bound to get extinct. The problem is in the individual. This does not get extinct. Any one of us that does some piracy, if they think they have an idea that can get money from it, they will try to patent it. So we have to act on the individual and try to, I don't know, convince him that it is best for him, or if not, much better for the whole. Would you comment that, Rick, please?
Okay, thank you. Who wants to comment? You want?
A short comment there is that basically everybody wants free money, sex, and free beer. I mean, so that's not a new concept in itself. The people actually making the laws, though, are tasked with the responsibility of caring for the public interest, which is generally striking a balance between many competing interests. So yes, in the individual case, I can see somebody fighting for sex and free beer and infinite monopolies, but they generally don't get a say as individuals, except for when casting their vote. It is the legislature, it is Parliament who has that job. So as long as these people still think that it would be great that if I had this monopoly, but not if everybody else had it too, then I think we can come to some sort of legislative consensus down the road.
I have a question mostly for the Assoft and the pirate parties representatives here, because they have the biggest dichotomy here. As Luís de Sousa said, your freedom stops where mine starts. And I think the situation in which the pirate parties oppose the most is that corporations as a whole are trampling the freedoms of the other people. And I noticed this dichotomy, especially when talking about piracy, but also in many other situations, in which what is the cause of the discussion, the cause of the disagreement is actually the rights regarding the people and the corporations themselves. For example, in which the point in which some more extremist people in the United States go to the point of considering corporations themselves people. What is your opinion regarding these rights as a whole? Which right? How do these rights affect the people and the corporations, and which rights do each deserve in each situation?
Well, I would suggest that we try to really analyze and check whether we are talking about power or freedom. Because when some people say they want the freedom to tell you what to do or what you do not do, like, no, you cannot copy this, or no, you cannot make a business out of this, only myself, they are not exerting freedom, they are exerting power over you. So whenever you think about right, you have to be very careful whether you're talking about legal right, which may be the legal right to exert power over you, or if you are talking about something that is right. For instance, I would never stop reading a story to my kid or sharing my music with my family. That would just be immoral to be forbidden to do that. So even though the law makes it a right for other people to say, no, you cannot do that. So at the nature of that, we must ourselves understand whether it's a matter of power, limiting over others, or if it's a matter of freedom. And then we really must go to the politicians and tell them, this is hurting us, please make it stop. Because the other side is doing just that, and they really just follow the experts.
Well, let's try to see if I understood the question. So first of all, I think we should be aware that, in fact, the law allows you to tell a story, so reading a book to your children, and also allows you to share with your wife and so on. What the law says is that you cannot do that broadly and also hurting the other person's right to make money. But I thought your question was more about the professionals working for a company. So the company itself? But in the sense that, so a company has people working for them, and they are the people who develop the software. Is that the point? I'm sorry, I thought it was what you...
It's regarding the, yes, the company does have a lot of people, but the company as a whole is considered sometimes, especially in some places, to have a certain amount of rights, and in other places, for example, in Europe, to be more of a method to produce things, and thus not as containing as many rights as a person itself, an individual would. And
so let me try to understand if my comment would be, so if a company wants to develop some kind of software and it needs programmers and an analyst and so on, they are going to pay for them. So you as individual, you are author, but the asset, so the product itself to sell belongs to the company. I don't know if that, so I have a company, I hire a lot of people to work for me, and I make them so I ask them to develop software. The software they developed, the authorship is theirs, so they are authors, moral authors if you want, and they will always be authors of that software. But I have the rights as a company to sell it because I was the person who invested in them to make the product. Is that the question, or?
That is
part of it, sorry.
Yes, I was talking mostly regarding the copyright monopolies and patent monopolies that were talked, for example, in the previous lecture. About how the people disagree is that some see the company that has those rights of copyright and those rights of patents, see their usage or application of those limitations as an abuse of the rights of the people, while others think it is a proper.
Okay, my comment here is I state up front what are the rights. So what are the conditions? If you accepted it, you use it. If you don't accept it, you don't use it. And again, please remember that the law, the general law, also reduces, like the example I gave you. You are entitled to share part of a book for yourself to study and so on. So that is a right that you have in the Portuguese law and in the majority of the European community countries. You are allowed to do that. Even if the author says you cannot take one photocopy, yes you can, for your personal use. So that's an example on how the normal law goes against the right of the author to say whatever he wants about his work. The point is, yes, as a user or as a consumer, you have one major force. You are the one to decide if you are going to write, or sorry, if you are going to read it or not, if it is about to listen. And that is a right that you have. And if you don't like the conditions where he is doing it, you just don't buy it. And you will discover that if the majority of us do not buy books in the normal channel, other channels will appear. If you prefer to go online and buy books in Amazon.com, for example, which I do normally, you will see that a lot of people will start buying online, and those companies that are relying on the traditional market, they might be facing a problem. But again, that's not bad. It's like the example, I believe it was done in the previous lecture, of the ice. Yes, the ice was a business until a change made it outdated. So it's life, and we should.
Okay. A very short answer. You referred to the way corporations tend to have human rights in the United States, whereas we see them more as a legal construct in Europe. In an ideal world, I'd agree with the let the market sort it out concept. However, we can observe that in general, the large players tend to band together and take away citizens' rights, so there is no market to sort it out, there is no perfect competition, and I think that's a problem. And at that point, when citizens' rights are in jeopardy, it becomes a political issue. Today, in order to exercise your fundamental rights, your rights as a citizen, you need the internet. You exercise freedom of opinion, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press through the internet. And therefore, the internet has become just as fundamental a right itself as all the other rights you exercise through it. As a consequence of that, or rather as an observation in conjunction with that, I am firmly of the opinion that corporations should not have any kind of human rights for the simple reasons that they are not human beings.
Okay, we have a question over here. Okay, and then we have another again.
Sorry, hello, my name is Ivo and I'm a PhD student here at IST, and I have a question a bit about what Luís de Sousa said about the rights of the developer, of the copyright owner. So if you say something like, I as a software developer am free to choose if I sell or not my software and who I sell it to. So basically, you are saying I have the right to not sell to sell my software to everyone, but people from Alentejo, because I don't like them. You are not saying that? No, I'm not saying. So,
what I'm saying is that I develop a software. I have one decision to make it. Am I going to offer it to the market, all the market, or am I going to sell it? So I'm going to offer it or to sell it. I have the right to choose the business model that I'm intending to use. I'm not entitled to say, I don't like those guys are brown, those guys are yellows, and it's not the question. So what I'm saying is, I will go to the market. Am I going to sell it? Yes. Am I going to put it available to the market? Yes or no? A lot of you might have developed things that do not put in the market because it makes no sense, you don't want it, whatever it is. The reason. It's your choice.
Okay, so basically you're against any form of DRM, because DRM is what allows the developers to make that choice for you. Is what says, well, you're from Europe and we haven't released that game in Europe, so tough luck. Maybe go pirate it, or maybe go to America. Have you thought about living in America, etc.?
Well, you are now bringing to a different thing, because Alentejo is part of Portugal, and I'm Portuguese, and I sell to all Portugal.
So it's different if Alentejo is elsewhere?
Because countries are different from each one, and the law, as you know, if you go to Spain, the particularities of the law, even for software, are different, or might be different. And I think these kind of debates are a good thing to go and try to put a common world if possible. But what you are saying is that I'm American, I'm doing software for the United States, and I don't want to sell it outside. I think it's an option I have. Maybe because I don't want to, I don't know why. But if I have it available for all the internet, I cannot do that. You go to the website and just downloaded it.
Okay, so just a final question. So if you say that the market will solve it, how will you allow the market to solve it if you add those restrictions? So thank you.
So no, your question is an interesting one. When I say that the market will sort it out, I have to admit one thing. We are in the 21st century. And for example, I believe on a free market, and I believe on a market economy, which means that I believe at my core that the equilibrium should come from the supply and demand thing. And the reason why the market economy is the best thing, in my view, for a country to implement and to use and to grow is because it relies in the end on the biggest force I ever know. It's the people motivation to have success. Like yourselves, if you look at it, what we do in the free market is I do things because I want to do it, and when I want to do it, it's the biggest driver that you have inside you. Now, your point is, should the market equilibrium goes for itself? Yes, it goes in the end, but sometimes it goes in the direction that you don't want to. So I have to agree. Sometimes, first of all, you should be very careful with anti-competitive things. I agree with you. Should be very, very careful about it, because the big guys can join themselves because they are big guys, they can sit everywhere. I never forget, I had a professor here who asks me once, where can an elephant sit? And we were saying, there, and the guy said, no, he can sit whenever he wants to. And it's what I want to say to you is, I believe in the free market, but unfortunately, we are also people. The major driver is inside us, but we have also the worst thing we have, that we are egoist, selfish, and those small things can sometimes make others hurt. So I will give you 2 examples of things that you should control. First of all is the competitiveness of the companies. The market should be open and competitive, and you should control that. Not over control, because it brings a lot of costs, and it is not doable on that way. And another thing that you can think is, even work should be free. But if work would be free, today, the majority of people that was gaining the minimum salary would be seeing that going down. And that's another example where you should intervene in the market, saying, don't go above or below a certain amount because we don't want to. Is that going to put, how should I say, an ineffective thing into the market model? Yes, it is. But it's because we want, as a group, to support that inefficiency. So I agree. So the last point is, I believe in the market. The market goes and finds their own equilibriums always. The problem is that in the 21st century, I think we should sometimes control those exactly because we want to be free in the end. And we don't want our phones my wife doesn't, well, my wife knows that I'm here, so it's okay. But I don't want anyone else to phone her saying, oh, you know, the guy that's supposed to be here is elsewhere doing something else. So we should be careful with that. Okay. Sorry.
And the question is, well, we all know internet is free, okay? I can access to a site in China. China is not a good example, but any other country. Anyway, countries, national countries, still exist, okay? And they have their own laws. And so, global market is a good thing for some kind of goods. Anyway, we have national laws. We don't know the future, how it will be, anyway, but for now, it's like this. I could bring an example. It links to what we've been talking here. We are in journalism. There is an ongoing discussion as well. When I make a story for TV, for instance, and then my boss sells that, well, when I enter TV, the TV channel, there was only TV, okay, television. And now we have internet and we have satellites and so on. And they are going, they can do much more money with that. And, but either I accept or not to work for them, because when I'm going to make a story, the camera is theirs, the other guys from the team are also are other guys. So if I want to do all by myself and to sell my own product, okay, it's my risk, okay. So it's my choice. I want, and we see that many people who is now at university studying, what they want is to get a job when they go out. Okay, if they want to get a job, there are rules for the guy who is employing them. So if you want to make your own company, okay, great. Anyway, we have these two realities, and you must choose. Here, a question, please.
There's one here first.
Here was first, I believe. Okay.
I believe it will be me now. Hello.
Okay.
Here. I have the mic, so.
Oh. That's the problem of having two mics. Okay.
Okay. So my name is Humberto. I work here in IST. I have first a question, maybe to Rui. It's a more technical question. So I don't share Rick's optimism on this whack-a-mole game with the Pirate Bay. Somehow I fear for it. I mean, when the site was put out of existence in UK and in Deutschland, so I had a proxy running at my home, but now when they cut the name and the internet access, I think it's more serious, I believe. And I would like to know how do you think, maybe Rui, maybe you, I don't know, how do you think IPv6 will impact on this? I mean, I think it will open some doors for the free internet, but it will also close some, I'm afraid. Another question, maybe to Luís, actually, for sure to Luís. So I hope you're not feeling too alone here. But how do you intend to? How do you want to do this? I mean, how do you want to control? Basically, the internet. You know, I can pick your software, steal it from you, maybe in your own words, and put it up there. Anonymously. I can do this. So how do you want to stop me from doing this? I believe you are a reasonable person, so I believe you don't want to open my letters, right? So how do you want to do this? Okay, finally to Rick. I don't know how long you will be staying here, but if you want to, I can share with you a fast motorcycle so that you can ride to Sintra or something. Please feel free to ask. Okay.
No whiskey.
The motorcycle thing. Thank you very much for the offer, but I'll be flying out tomorrow morning. I'll make sure to make a note of it for my next return to Lisbon. Thank you so much.
Well, I don't plan to control anything. So, no, the issue is that I believe what you see is that is a question of education. When you said, I hope you are not feeling alone here, I will tell you one thing that is also true. In 10 years' time, 90% of you will be like me. The other 10, I don't know. But so, and I hope you will be, because that means that you learn something and you are working and be productive for the society. Like I am now, so. But I don't think it's a question of control. So we need to put some laws in place. And I try to be very economicist when I look at things. And I don't try to fight things that cost me more fighting than the return I have from it. So in this stage, what I think it's important is we should do what our conscience tell us to do. I don't copy a film. I teach my son that is also working, studying here. I have a hard time teaching them both of the children that they shouldn't copy, and why is that an important issue for me, and why they should not be doing that. But apart from it, I think I don't have a magical plan, and I don't intend to. So it's a question of I defend what I believe is what I said here. Apart from it, if you have any ideas, I will be. Thank you.
I doubt IPv6 will do much change to the thing. It may allow some privacy with the built-in security and ciphering, but really they will just try to legislate with via the World Trade Organization and other entities that they will try to make it illegal to host the Pirate Bay in any form. So the only way that you really can do something about it is just to make pressure and tell them that it's hurting society more than it is helping when they protect the business interests of very few against the interests of the other all of people. Nowadays, when they say that they want to protect authors, they have to be very careful with that, because it's increasingly evident to politicians that the authors and artists are not just the ones that are represented by a few associations or entities. Most of us are the authors. So if they are trying to make laws to protect the authors, they have to be very careful, because they are hurting most of the authors. So what we really need to do is to pressure on politicians from all the political spectrums, from left to right. Please, this is hurting us. So you have to make it stop.
Anyway, when you are making laws, you must be aware of law enforcement, because you have to make reasonable laws and applicable laws. It doesn't matter if you have, and in Portugal we have plenty of laws that are not applied. Perhaps this is not the only place where it happens. So it's not enough to make another law. They must see what kind of law they are doing, and if it is reasonable, and if it is applicable, if they can use it. Okay, now it's your time.
Hi, my name is Igor. I work in a security lab, and my question is, so for the next generation consoles, companies are talking about attaching the software to the console itself. So if the law says I can lend like a book or a CD song, something like that, I will not be able to lend a game to my friends. So how does the law seize this? How is this possible to solve? Because companies will actually limit my power to obey the law.
this is a bigger problem than with game consoles. It already exists, and we are seeing an erosion of the very concept of ownership that I think is very concerning. A lot of companies are selling you something, or they're saying that you're selling you something, and yet in doing so, they keep an owner-like control of what they have already sold to you. They keep the ability to do things to your property that you're supposedly signing away in whatever kind of contractual form. One hair-raising example of this was with Amazon Kindle a couple of years ago, when Amazon suddenly decided it didn't have the digital distribution right to a couple of books and summarily deleted them remotely from the Kindles of people who had already bought them. One of these books just happened to be George Orwell's 1984. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, than a bookstore remotely deleting the book 1984 on somebody's bought and paid for copy. So we are coming to a point where you may still have a legal right to let your children inherit your property. But if corporations have taken away that possibility by technical means, then I think we have a real problem. If you can't pass your used games, your used books, your used whatever to friends, children, family, then the entire concept of property is at risk. And I think that's a very, very real and very dangerous problem. So I absolutely agree with you. And it doesn't start with next generation consoles. It's already here.
Yeah, and that means that a law shouldn't only target consumer behavior, but also companies' behavior.
Absolutely.
Ok, eu tinha visto aqui há mais alguém que tinha feito sinal. Okay. Depois lá atrás, não é? Ok?
In one example Luís de Sousa gave, you say that the programmer is an author and have author's right, but I think that doesn't happen. I was told that every code I write when I'm working for a company belongs to a company. Is that true for Portugal? And what do you think about it?
It's twofold. And so we should be very careful with it. What I said was, you wrote a piece of software for a company. So you are being paid by a company to make that software. So their idea, their project, everything is theirs. You only made the code. In that situation, what I said is, you are the moral author, but the rights to sell that application or that product belongs to the company. And I think is how it should be. So I don't know if
But they gave me a problem. I solved it. The idea is mine, not...
No, so they gave you a problem, so they gave you the project, and the way I see it, they are paying you for that. And it's like, no, they ask you to do that, and they pay you. So you can say, I fixed it. You can go to university and say, this is how I fixed it. This is the code I have used. It's your right. To sell it, I'm very sorry. It's the one who paid for your job that has that right to do. Otherwise, you have another option. You get the idea first, you do it by yourself, and you sell it by yourself.
No, do I get the problem first?
If you don't have a problem, you don't have a solution. Sorry.
But...
Yeah, please.
I would pretty much suggest you never to do that and do not collaborate with such companies that would rather take your rights from you. And I would suggest that you would rather write free software rather than write software that will remove the rights of other people through their licenses, because that is going to hurt other people and reduce their rights. So I would rather those companies fail and keep the bugs and just die of natural death, because nobody will want to use their software. Thank you.
Your option.
another thing, but it's not only that code that I write for that company. Every code I can make the company have the right. I think this happened in USA.
Yes. So if you are being paid to do a job, and your job is to make some code, that code, the right to sell the code, it's from the company. The authorship of that code is yours. And I agree with Rui. If you want to give it away for free, just go at your home, do it, and be my guest, because I think it's a very good model. The only problem is that you will not get money from that. So I don't know how you will be leaving it, but then maybe Rui will explain you how we can do it.
What I was question is if the company can say that, can make me sign a contract that every code you write when this contract is valid.
So I'm not a lawyer.
It's mine.
Okay, I'm not a lawyer. I would say that they can ask you to do it. If you want to do it, you will do it. Otherwise, you probably will not sign that and will not work for that company. But I'm not a lawyer to explain you if the law allows you
Nuno
or not.
Cardoso, can you talk?
Yes, I currently work for a company which I'm very happy to because I believe in it. I'm working there for 11 years now. And yes, many companies do such kind of contracts. I myself, in my company, for instance, I have various problems that I have to solve, and the code, of course, is of the company that I represent. But I also do some code at work that I then use at the company, but that code I put on the web for free. I open source some projects, and because I knew that I would need them at the company later, and since I saw the problem first, I made the solution first, and I open sourced it. Then I used it at the company, and since it's GPL, it's okay for me to use it, and it would be okay anyway because I would give permission to. But I do believe that there are companies that do such kind of contracts that force you to say, if you want to work for us, every code that you make is ours, and that's a problem, of course. But you cannot also force them to give you another kind of contract. All you can do is refuse and go work for another place. In another aspect, you truly are the author of those things, because for once I do not agree with patents, but some of the work I did for my company, the lawyers at the company made patents for it. And it's insane, but you wouldn't believe how patents are made. It's really insane. But my name is in the patent, not the company's name, because although they own the patent, because I had to sign the rights of the patent to them, I really don't care. My name is on those patents, so I am the author. The authorship is mine. The rights holder is the company, but it's okay for me because I really like the company I'm working in. That's why I'm there, and that's why I decided to go there. And I see it as not a company, but if this was a band, I would see myself as a member of the band. Of course, even in bands, sometimes the owner of the name of the band or the rights of the band is not the entire band. Sometimes it's just one or two musicians of the band, and the rest just come in later, and it's the same thing. But yes, there are some abuses that I would not like to see in our law, but they are permitted because a contract can be anything that the two persons signing them can want for them, and if the company wants it like that.
I would really just like to quickly point out that those lawyers are incompetent because in Portugal software patents are illegal. So if anyone is doing that, those lawyers should be immediately fired told them that this non-lawyer here knows more about patent law in Portugal than they do.
Yes, but those patents are not in Portugal. They were filed in the United States.
and even probably there.
No, there it's okay. There's another problem with software patent monopolies in Europe, and that is, we were talking about enforcement of the law earlier, and how you cannot really separate enforcement of the law from the law itself, that they tend to meld together into the end effect on people. And I think software patent monopolies are an excellent example of that. In 2005, it was found by the European Parliament to not change the patent monopoly directives into allowing software patent monopolies. It says very clearly that software as such is not patentable subject matter. However, the patent courts, who mostly consist of patent monopoly lawyers, have taken it on themselves to grant these by the tens of thousands. And as a legislator, what do you do in such a case? Do you add a couple of words saying software are really not patentable and we really mean it? So if people with a vested interest decide they are going to interpret the law in some way, that creates a very specific problem. So yes, we did decide in the European Parliament that software patents are not patentable subject matter. The European Patent Court has summarily ignored this and issued them by the tens of thousands. And unfortunately, they are the ones who decide on patent disputes.
I think I'm asking. My colleague spoke about copyright in a worldwide sense, because, for example, YouTube, there are certain videos that are available in some places and in others that aren't. And you said that that's because of local laws. That is understandable. I do understand that certain laws may intervene in some videos, but for example, there are music videos that are not available in certain countries, and it says specifically that it's because the copyright company that holds the rights to that video does not allow to be shown in that particular country. And one thing is for individual laws to prevent that video from being available, and the other is the company itself not allowing it, because you said it yourself, if you want to sell it, you sell it to everyone. And it's one of the most fundamental rights of humanity, it's equality. And I don't think that it's equality conducive to make something available to people from certain countries and not others. And in terms of laws, I understand that they can prevent it, but we're not speaking about laws. We are speaking about companies that say you can't show that in that country. And I do not know if that's the companies that decide it or if it's, then again, laws. I don't. Yeah.
So do you want my comment? I probably think you are right. So basically, what I think it happens is that the middlemen involved in that decision, they do not have an agreement to get money from a particular part of the globe, and so they are not allowing to sell it. I think that's why we are debating. It's because of those abuses that are from some of the labels that generates this. I don't like to see it that. So if you want my personal opinion, I agree with you. I don't think that they should be so discretionary in that sense. So, but again, I'm not. Do you want to help me?
Actually, I'd like to add a larger perspective here, because this question kind of got me going to a point where I get really angry about something. And seeing that I also come from a town where people can't shut up, that's not a good combination. There's a north versus south perspective of this as well, where rich companies and people in the global north, meaning essentially Europe and North America, are taking it on themselves to impose monopolies on the poor South, Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, where pharma companies somehow get the right, through deception and through aggression from ultimately backed by military might, to prevent people in developing countries from using their own knowledge, their own raw materials, and their own plants to manufacture medicine for their own people. And as a result, millions of people die. And I think that's fucking evil. I think that's downright immoral and despicable, unworthy of human beings to behave in that kind of manner. It's the same. And that goes for knowledge as well. For the first time in history, we have all human knowledge easily packageable. Anybody can get an education. You don't have to pay tuition to go to a college, although you can do so. You can just as easily get knowledge online today. We could educate 7 billion people to college level. And the thing that prevents us from doing this are monopolies. The North is taking it on themselves to prevent the global poor South from accessing knowledge, even though it would be absolutely free to do so. And that is only in a matter of preventing them from gaining the same level of privileges that the North has. It is a game of global economic dominance. It has nothing to do with helping the poor South into a trade union. It is a game where you kick away the ladder once you've gone to the top yourself, and I think that is just as despicable. To prevent other people from accessing knowledge, to prevent other people from sharing what they know and helping humanity as a whole is something that gets me outraged.
Okay, thank you. And now we have the question over here.
So, thanks.
The power of the mic.
My question is mainly to Rick. I'm here, right here, down. So, you made that analogy with the bottle, and you said that you bought the bottle, and now it's yours to do what you want. But now imagine I buy an iPad and I have the technology to replicate it. I can make an exact copy of that iPad and I can make loads of it.
Tea, Earl Grey, hot. Ding!
So
that was a Star Trek reference.
Yeah, I know. So am I entitled to the right to do whatever I want with that copies I made of the iPad and make money with that copies?
I think that's an excellent question. If you have technology to solve world hunger, would it be a problem? If you can replicate food at no cost, do we sit in panels and discuss how will chefs make a living if we can solve world hunger, if we can't sell food any longer? If anybody can have anything they like, is that really a problem? I don't think so. Do you have under today's laws, it would be a problem, yes, but that's because these laws were not written for such an environment. So would you have a right to sell iPods if you could make them infinitely? Not under today's laws, you wouldn't. But if we had such replicators, you would see a different type of social norms emerge. One of the worst crimes that could conceivably exist would be eating the last cookie, because there would be no more original to copy.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but that can be applied to food, and it's really nice of you to say that if you could solve world hunger with replicated food, you would. But I'm studying computer engineering. I intend to develop software, and I've listened to your opinion and to the opinion of the other speakers, and I understand that sharing is good, and it can promote my software, and I can get money from it. But my idea could be sold by anyone else, and I would not have the right to say that, for example, I didn't want people to have it. I'm not saying I don't. It's just I need to have this right. I need to have the right to have an idea, produce something, and then decide what to do with it. It's just my opinion, and I would like to hear yours.
Sorry. So I didn't get your name.
André.
André. So I think you are right in the sense that it's different things. So it's an easy speak what Rick said, because everybody knows that we need to, go after and fight the suffering on the world. But please note one thing: if you are allowed to copy, as your example, the iPod, in 10 years from now, no one would be doing the new generation of iPods, because no one would be, would invest to be able, because if you are allowed to copy, as Rick was suggesting, it's the same as saying, I am spending $1 billion making some product, then you can copy it, and so I'm doing something, the market accepts it, and I cannot cash in. So in that sense, what I defend is, precisely, you should be allowed, because innovation is that all is. Innovation don't come like that, and you are studying, you know that. Innovation is hard work, it's investment. For only 1 in every 10 ideas come out to be something that is useful. So we need to, at least in the ratio of 1 to 10, to be able to cash in the money that we are investing. What I'm saying is, on average, a company spends 10 to make 1 idea, so it needs to be able to be allowed to, on a successful product, to cash in. So in that sense, I'm sorry, I agree that if you want the market to innovate, because the majority of the people will invest, you should allow them to have time to have the return. And that's the only point. Otherwise, the innovation will end. If today we say, from now on, let's share everything, in 10 years from now, we had the same the same things we had, because we were not making money doing new things. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm sorry to be so blunt, but you're completely wrong, and I have the evidence to prove it. I believe in evidence-based policymaking, as in we observe what's happening in the real world, and we make policy from that. I hear this a lot, that if we were allowed to copy freely, if an industry had rampant copying, if somebody just made something and everybody else could copy and sell it, there would be no more innovation. I hear this a lot. Yet, in the industries where this is allowed, you see the highest innovation rates in the entire market. The fashion industry, specifically, has no protection for its designs. There's no copyright, there's no, design patents applicable to fashion, and people copy rampantly. And yet, it's a thriving ecosystem. If you measure it, it has the highest innovation rates of all industries. So, looking at what's actually happening, I have to conclude that if you were to allow rampant copying in at least one very thriving industry, it rises the innovation rate. I won't say that goes for every industry, but I can say with certainty that it's not an absolute rule. So, going to your example about the bottle, and if you sell something, should you have the right to control who gets ownership or control of it? That depends a bit on what we're talking about. If you're selling something, then you've sold it. And under property rights, as they look today, obviously there's a difference here between what the law looks like today and how we argue that it should look. Those are 2 different concepts. But if you sell something, then that becomes the property of somebody else. And you don't get a continued say over how they could or should use it. If you're building a chair and selling it, you don't get to say who gets to sit on the chair. That's the new owner's prerogative. As for software, which is infinitely duplicatable, copyable, I think we have a larger structural problem that we need to solve about this, because we tend to look at it as something packaged, discrete, and scarce, whereas in reality it is abundant and infinitely copyable. And this leads to problems in how we perceive it. And that is, part of that is the language we use. Did you sell the software? Well, what did you sell? You didn't sell the software. You sold a CD with the software encoded onto it. That was the property that changed hands. So I'm seeing the organizers want to wrap up here. They are standing very impatient. So concluding, I'm sort of concluding the panel, I guess. We are in the midst of a very interesting shift where the old truths need to be questioned, and where a lot of growth pains will come out of the economy, out of the creative structures, and out of what we see as inalienable rights, and probably even what we see as property. And out of that, something else will emerge, and I am in no position whatsoever what that would look like, but I'm certain that it's going to be a fun ride.
Thank you. Miguel wants to add something.
Can I get...
He asked first.
Well, your question regarding if you were able to replicate iPads, I think that replication the capacity to replicate something always forces players in the market to differentiate themselves from the other players. That's what's happening right now in China, where, for instance, where you can find SIP Android and Android tablets and smartphones, that they all have different features between themselves. They all, yet their price is very, very accessible. The replication doesn't extinguish innovation. On the contrary, it forces differentiation, because then you need to present something that is really appealing to the consumers for them to give their money to you, and not for the other one, the other guy across the street that has a tablet that is less expensive. That's why I just wanted to...
I'll just finish up with a simple example of a person that probably made the same question to himself some decades ago when he decided to create a piece of software. If I give this away for free, will this ever evolve past this first version, or will it be innovative in any way? His name was Linus Torvalds, and he created Linux. And I don't see Linux stopping now or ever, and I do see companies making profits out of Linux, and even when their products are taken for other companies, that they build upon it and they do also a profit. So I don't think that's an issue. We just need to be smart about how we do our work and how we market it, and what do we take from it instead of just selling it. Maybe there are other things associated with it that we can profit from. So I don't think that's going to be ever a problem.
Thank you. I can finish without giving the word to the guy over there.
Thank you. The artists create something, or programmers, they create something, and they want money for it. So if we consider money, a motivation, a prize, so they want a prize for us to see their work. I believe that isn't fair. We have to see their work and see if they deserve that prize, that money. And if they have a good idea for another, I believe everyone would want to donate to see another music from their favorite bands, favorite movie maker, that kind of things. And another point, creating open source software wouldn't just kill the artists. It would improve them, because the competition would be far greater. Because if everyone can have access to studies, everyone can have a better opinion, and be more creative about it. So there would be more developers, and what it would do, it would just select the best, and the best would prosperar, would achieve more things, would be better. I believe that creating something for free is just raising the stake. It's just increasing the amount of work necessary to do something better, and that is good. That keeps the world running, and society developing more things, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. Your final comments, if you want to comment on this.
Well, I just want to say something, because money is not the only incentive that there is, the only factor of motivation for authors and artists and developers to create something. There's always narcissism. There's always other factors, other motivations, like narcissism, like need to express your ideas to the rest of the world, to need to publicize some political or social or religious message. There's always lots of incentives behind money, and you have just to start giving more attention to those incentives besides money, not only in software development but also in culture and in the knowledge production.
Okay, thank you. I think we must conclude now, and after all that has been said, I would conclude saying that we are facing a big challenge with this new reality, not so new, but we as producers, we as content producers, software developers, and we as citizens as well. So let's face the challenge. Thank you very much for being with us.